Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to Live Now from Fox. About 7:41 a.m. here on the East Coast, and we are staying on top of everything you need to know when it comes to the Gabby Petito case. Yesterday, at this 25,000-acre nature preserve out there in Sarasota County, Florida, specifically around the Venice area, we saw teams back out searching for 23-year-old Brian Laundrie, the only person of interest in Gabby Petito's death and disappearance. However, he is still just a person of interest, and it's basically been more than a month since his family last claims that they saw or heard from him. So to talk about and break down everything that we've seen over the last several days and really the whole timeline of events is retired NYPD detective Joe Thompson joining us here on Live Now from Fox right now. Joe, how are you doing? So great to see you.
Great to see you, Virginia. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Joe, we actually haven't spoken here on Live Now from Fox in a couple of weeks. So right off the bat, we've seen the coroner in Teton County officially say that Gabby was strangled to death. We've got Brian Laundrie missing for over a month now. What do you make over the last several weeks when it comes to this investigation?
Well, yeah, there seems to be a lot of new developments that are going on. It's amazingly profound at this point. The cause of death now that we know is strangulation. That does add a lot to the investigation now. They do have a lot more to work with now. Unfortunately, in most cases, in strangulation cases, when it does happen between a domestic couple, you get a little bit limited with the type of evidence that you're going to get. This case is, for most part, is going to be built not off of physical evidence. It's basically going to be what they find in the van. It's going to be a lot of other little pieces of the puzzle that they're going to have to put together. But I'm really kind of hoping that they get some details out about the van eventually, because I think that van is going to play a big part now that we know the cause of death. Just going back to the body cam footage that we originally saw that was taken out in Wyoming. One of the things that caught my attention in that body cam video was when Gabby had said that Brian had put his hands on her face in order to try to quiet her down when she said she was having one of her little attacks. So my guess is, and this is again only speculation, maybe they were having some sort of an issue in the van, and maybe something like this also occurred in the van, and he took it a step further. So there's a very good possibility that that van is our crime scene, and her body was taken out of that van and left in that forest.
Now, Joe, it's so important to mention, and what can you say about the fact that throughout this entire time, we now have the manner of death ruled a homicide, the coroner saying that Gabby was strangled to death, but need to mention that Brian Laundrie is still just a person of interest?
Well, I think at this point, it's probably more than a person of interest. Again, they're not going to reveal their hand yet. I think it's kind of just semantics now with them calling him a person of interest. He is the only suspect. He was the last person that we know that was with her. And there's a lot of unanswered questions. So just to break it down once again, they're not going to have all the federal authorities, state, local authorities, all these resources basically in this country looking for this person for a bank fraud charge or just a simple person of interest. It's definitely going to be more than that. We won't know exactly what it is until after he is captured, whether it's dead or alive, and then I'm sure they'll release information at that point. But I will explain to you why the FBI will not break down some of the information that has been released so far, even the stuff with the coroner's office. So basically, when you have a big investigation like this, you're looking off of unique parts of this investigation. So let's just use a hypothetical real quick, just for your viewers to understand, why there's such limited information coming out about this case. Let's just say that her remains were found clothed, and let's just say that her shirt was ripped in the front. And, nobody can explain why, because she was strangled. maybe there was a struggle, but nobody really knows that, and they're not going to release that. So one day when they do capture him and they do interrogate him, and they're just asking him just to freely explain what happened, and he mentioned something about, yeah, well, we got into a fight, and I ripped her shirt, that nobody else knows that except for him. And they want to use that to kind of put the nail in the coffin, so to speak, in a trial against him. Because again, there's not going to be physical evidence for the most part in this. DNA evidence is going to be irrelevant here because they belong together. So any DNA that you find on her from him is basically supposed to be there. The only way DNA will play a role in this is if it's an outside person. So when they compare DNA on her body and it's not his, that's a completely different scenario. Now you're looking for somebody different.
Yeah, and Joe, I think, when we were watching the full virtual press conference from the coroner's office, a lot of the media had those questions asking about DNA. And what can you say about the fact, and I know it was related to Wyoming laws, but the coroner really could not give us too much information.
Well, I think the coroner is being instructed right now by the FBI. The FBI really does not like to release any information on cases like this. And again, it's, there's a reason for it. It's not, I kind of don't understand why they even bothered with a press conference. They could have just released the cause of death and manner of death on its own without a press conference, because it was a little silly to have people asking all these questions knowing that they can't answer any of them, or they won't answer any of them. But there is a good reason that they do it that way. Again, when you have a case like this, you're very limited with the type of evidence you're going to have going down the line. When you investigate a homicide like this, you always have to think forward, and you always have to think, what are we going to, how are we going to put this case into court? What evidence do we have? Are we sure that this happened the way it happened? And, they want to be the only people that know certain things about this case. So down the line, once something gets revealed and nobody else knew about it, they'll use it against him.
Now, I want to turn our conversation, Joe, to the search for Brian Laundrie, because I know that you have been on the scene of plenty of search efforts before. We had these canines, one specific canine actually, joining the search at the Carlton Reserve, which I want to talk to you about as well, because we saw a whole manhunt, so many law enforcement agencies on foot, in buggies, using all these resources to search this reserve. Then we kind of saw them die down again within the last couple of weeks. But yesterday we had a canine specifically trained for human remains detection.
So basically right now they're looking for the remains of Brian. Let's get real here. It's 30 days. This guy is out in a swamp, apparently out in the swamp or in the forest somewhere. And, just to your viewers, Brian Laundrie is not Bear Grylls. He is not an expert survivalist. I don't care what anybody is saying, how wonderful of a camper he was. 30 days in a swamp or in a forest for a 23-year-old kid is very unlikely in my mind. I would feel personally, looking at this investigation, there is no way he is still alive in a forest or in a swamp unless he is being severely aided by another person, or he has been given resources by another person and is hiding out somewhere. And just, another point is that if they really believed originally that he was in this forest, and I've heard people speculate, well, he could live off the land and he could do this and that. Well, to live off the land is great, but that means you have to hunt your food. That means you have to cook your food. And then you have to drink your water. People saying there's plenty of fresh water, but you can't just drink the water out of a swamp. You're going to get sick, and it's not like he's going to walk into an urgent care. He is going to have to boil his water. He's going to have to cook his food. And what does that mean? It means he's going to make plenty of fires. So he's not going to make these fires during the day when he feels that people are looking for him. He's going to make them at night. So at that point, helicopters, drones with heat detectors that they use out in the wildfires out west would be used. But, they really haven't done much of that. And I think at this point, they're probably steering in the direction that if he is in this forest or in the swamp, then he's probably still not alive. So they're going to bring in the cadaver dogs. They're going to look for remains of possibly him there. But if I had to guess, he's probably nowhere near a forest. He's probably somewhere else. He's either being aided and abetted by someone else, or in another state. At this point, he could be in another country. We really just don't know.
Yeah, and that seems to have a lot of just literally everybody confused and concerned because they are still executing all efforts to search this nature reserve. And then we've also seen tips coming from the Appalachian Mountains up in the Tennessee area. So really just at this point, they know the most, correct? I mean, does it mean something at the fact that the FBI has taken the reins on these search efforts? Because initially we saw the Northport police really leading it first.
Well, yeah, the Northport police are the reason that we're here at this point now, a month later, still looking for him. So that was something that I hope is addressed later on down the line. And I have a little bit more faith in the FBI with the coordination and the resources that they have to use to find him. People are going to be calling in from all over the country for him. I mean, there's going to be some crazy leads that are going to sound ridiculous. And there's going to be some leads that may actually work out. But you have a 30-day lead. He's got a 30-day lead on us now. So he could literally be anywhere. He could be hiding out in his family friend's basement for all we know. But I think it's highly unlikely that he's surviving on his own in the forest or a swamp.
Now, Joe, I also do want to focus the last part of our conversation on Brian Laundrie's parents because we've seen them. This is actually some footage of them mowing their lawn while their son is out there. They are getting basically harassed in front of their own property every single day. We've seen laundry baskets being thrown at the front of their house, signifying dirty laundry. What is your reaction to really the parents' handling of this investigation? I know for the first time, the dad last weekend finally joined the search at the Carlton Reserve.
Well, I see that as complete theatrics orchestrated by his attorney. Just looking at the video that you just played of him mowing his lawn, I don't see a man who is worried about finding his 23-year-old son alive. I don't see the concern on the parents' faces when I see the video of them walking in and out and ignoring reporters. My advice to them is, if you're not guilty and you didn't do anything wrong, you don't need a lawyer. Come out and talk to the investigators and find your son if that's really what your goal is. But at this point, they're so worried about getting caught up by the law, but right now they're guilty in the court of public opinion, and they've already been convicted for the most part. Nobody in this planet that I could imagine is going to think that they didn't have anything to do with this. They're making themselves look guilty as heck. And I think the only way out from under that is to come forward. And at this point, I don't even know if I would even believe what they're saying, but they hold the key. That family holds the key. And I just want to bring out one more point. They have already given misstatements to the FBI. They've given their own son an extra day lead time on the day that they reported him missing. In 24 hours, let's just break that down real quick. How far could you possibly go in 24 hours? I know I've driven from Florida to New York in 24 hours. You can go quite a distance in 24 hours. That's a significant lead that he was given by his parents. And the last time I checked, when you give a false statement to a federal agent, it's a crime. So I'm very surprised, and I'm not really sure what the tactics are here as far as the parents go, but they need to be brought in and questioned because they hold the key to all this, them and the system.
Yeah, Joe. Now, at this point, we've gotten that key information from the coroner. That was basically one of the last, until Brian Laundrie is found, that was basically one of the last big chunks of information that we could get as the public. So really, what are these search efforts about to entail for the future? Where do you think we can go from here?
This may be one of these cases where we're looking for him for years. I mean, he may be on America's Most Wanted list for years to come. I mean, it just seems like it was completely orchestrated from the beginning. I mean, just if you look at the scenario, he comes back to Florida, his family lawyers him up immediately, and then he disappears, and the family's still hiding behind this lawyer. I mean, I don't think he's dead personally. I think he's hiding, and I think this was all planned. There's a lot of police work that still needs to go into it. I'm still curious to find out a little bit more about that camping trip that they went on. They haven't released too much more information on that. We do know now that the sister was there at one point when she originally wasn't supposed to be there. We also found out that during the course of the time frame that Brian flew in from Wyoming. I mean, these are all bits and pieces of a puzzle that are coming together a little bit late in the game. So I'm really kind of shocked and surprised that, that family hasn't been brought in. I mean, again, they're hiding behind this lawyer. And my advice to them is, hey, you don't like the harassment, you don't like the people in front of you. That's never going to go away unless you just come out and tell the world what's going on, what you know, because obviously you know something.
Well, Joe, yeah, there's definitely been no short of twists and turns when it comes to this investigation. We really appreciate you joining us on Live Now from Fox several times throughout the last month to kind of break down everything that you just said, that timeline, everything that they've taken back, how people are reacting. So we really appreciate you joining us, and we'll definitely be in touch soon. I hope you have a great weekend.
Anytime, Regina. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.
You as well, Joe. And just to let you guys know, again, we do know that the Petito family is currently in Wyoming. They are expected to bring her remains back to their home in New York this weekend. Specifically, we do know that they are expected to bring her ashes